Jinho Park stood at the entrance of the massive Galactic Science Summit building. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady as he held his presentation tablet. The building reached up into the purple alien sky of Centauri Prime, its crystal spires gleaming in the light of 3 suns. "You can do this," he whispered to himself. At 16, he was the youngest person ever to present at the summit. He was also the first human to do so since Earth joined the Galactic Alliance just 6 months ago. Inside the presentation hall, thousands of aliens sat in rising circles. Some had blue skin, others had scales, and a few even floated in anti-gravity bubbles. They all turned to stare at Jinho as he walked to the center stage. Ambassador Tao gave him an encouraging nod from the Earth section. Next to him, Jinho's best friend Dae-sung held up 2 thumbs up. They had grown up together in Seoul, spending countless hours in Jinho's garage laboratory, dreaming of this moment. Distinguished members of the Galactic Science Council, Jinho began, his voice clear and strong. "I present my thesis on quantum field manipulation and its applications in faster-than-light travel." The room went quiet. Jinho activated his holographic display, showing his calculations and designs. He had worked on this project for 3 years, ever since he'd found a mistake in the standard alien FTL equations. As he explained his theory, a low murmur started in the crowd. Then came the first laugh. It started with a tall, silver-skinned alien in expensive robes. Others joined in. "This is primitive thinking," someone shouted. "He's using outdated concepts we abandoned centuries ago," another voice called out. Jinho's cheeks burned, but he kept going. He believed in his work. The laughter grew louder, and some aliens even stood up and left the hall. But one person wasn't laughing. Hae-Yun Lee, a senior researcher known for her brilliant work in quantum physics, was leaning forward in her seat. Her eyes were wide as she studied Jinho's equations. "Young man," she called out, silencing the room. "That variable in your 3rd equation, explain it again." Jinho smiled and zoomed in on the number. "This represents the quantum tunnel effect I discovered. It's different from what we currently use because—" Enough. A large alien with 4 arms stood up. "We will not waste time on a child's imagination. Earth barely has space travel, and now they send us children with dreams." The High Council members nodded in agreement. Jinho saw Ambassador Tadwan's face turn red with anger, but the diplomat stayed silent. Earth needed allies, not enemies. As Jinho packed up his presentation, Hae-Yun approached him. "They're wrong to laugh," she said quietly. "There's something in your work, something they're too proud to see. Keep developing it." Jinho nodded, his determination growing stronger. "I will," he said. "And next time, they won't be laughing." As he left the summit building with Dae-sung, Jinho looked up at the alien sky. "I'm going to prove them all wrong," he said. Dae-sung grinned. "I know you will, and I'll help you do it." What none of them knew that day was that Jinho's primitive theory would soon change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. The laughter would stop very soon, replaced by something very different. Fear. Back in his garage laboratory in Seoul, Jinho stared at the failed experiment smoking on his workbench. It was his 5th attempt this week. The memory of the aliens laughing at him still burned in his mind, even after 3 months. "Maybe we should take a break," Dae-sung said, opening a window to let the smoke out. He had been helping Jinho every day after school, bringing snacks and checking calculations. "No," Jinho replied, already setting up for another test. "Look at this." He pointed to his computer screen, where strange patterns danced across the quantum field scanner. "The energy isn't disappearing. It's going somewhere we can't see." Dae-sung leaned closer. "That's not possible. Energy can't just vanish." "Exactly." Jinho's eyes lit up. "What if we're not failing? What if we're seeing something new?" He grabbed a blank piece of paper and started drawing. His hand moved fast as he sketched out new ideas. Dae-sung watched, munching on chips, as the drawings became more detailed. "You're going to need a bigger power source," Dae-sung said, pointing to one part of the design. Jin-ho nodded. "I know where to get one." He looked at the old quantum core his professor, Sun-mi Kang, had given him for practice. It wasn't supposed to be used for experiments, but he had no choice. The next day, they set up the new test. The garage was crowded with equipment they had built from spare parts and modified household items. Jin-ho had even turned his mother's old rice cooker into a quantum field stabilizer. "Ready?" Jin-ho asked, his finger hovering over the start button. Dae-sung put on his safety goggles. "Ready." The machine hummed to life. Blue light filled the garage as energy flowed through the quantum core. On the screen, the numbers started climbing. "Something's different," Dae-sung said, watching the readings. "The energy. It's not spreading out like before." Jin-ho held his breath. The machine's hum grew louder, and then suddenly, a tiny black dot appeared in the air above their test chamber. "Is that?" Dae-sung couldn't finish his sentence. "A micro-singularity," Jin-ho whispered. "We just created a controlled black hole the size of a dust particle." They stared in amazement as the tiny black dot hung there, perfectly stable. It wasn't destroying anything or growing larger. It was just waiting. "The aliens said it couldn't be done," Jin-ho said, his voice full of wonder. "They said humans didn't understand quantum physics well enough." Dae-sung laughed. "Well, they were wrong about that." Just then, they heard footsteps outside. Jin-ho quickly shut down the machine, and the black dot vanished. The garage door opened, revealing Professor Sun-mi. "I thought I might find you here," she said, looking around at all the equipment. Then she saw the quantum core and her eyes widened. "You've been experimenting with it, haven't you?" Jin-ho started to apologize, but Sun-mi held up her hand. "Show me what you've discovered," she said. "Something tells me it's important." As Jin-ho prepared to demonstrate his discovery again, he didn't know that this moment would change everything. In his small garage in Seoul, he had just invented something that would make the entire galaxy take notice. The aliens' laughter was about to turn into stunned silence. Professor Sun-mi watched in silence as Jin-ho's micro-singularity floated in the air. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were shaking as she took notes. "How long can you keep it stable?" she asked. 10 minutes now," Jin-ho said proudly, "but something else happens when we add energy to it." He nodded to Dae-sung, who pressed a button on their control panel. The tiny black dot began to glow around its edges. Then, without warning, it shot a beam of pure energy across the garage. The beam passed straight through 3 layers of alien shield material they had set up for testing. "Impossible," Sun-mi whispered. "The shields were supposed to stop any known weapon or energy beam. They were the same type used on alien warships. The micro-singularity bends space around the energy beam," Jin-ho explained. "It goes through shields like they're not even there." Dae-sung pointed to their computer screen. "We can control where it goes too. Watch this." He typed in some commands, and the energy beam drew a perfect circle on their target board. Sun-mi sat down heavily on a workbench. "Do you understand what you've created?" she asked. "This isn't just a scientific breakthrough. This is a weapon that could change everything." Jin-ho nodded slowly. "I know. That's why we kept it secret." He looked at his friend. "Only Dae-sung, and now you know about it." "The aliens who laughed at you," Sun-mi said. "They'd stop laughing if they saw this." Just then, they heard cars pulling up outside. Through the garage window, they saw 3 black vehicles with government markings. "They found out," Dae-sung said, his voice nervous. The garage door opened. A tall woman in a military uniform walked in, followed by 2 men in suits. Jin-ho recognized one of them. It was Ambassador Taiwan from the Science Summit. "Jin-ho Park," the woman said. "I'm General Moon. We need to talk about your invention." "How did you know?" Sun-mi asked, stepping in front of Jin-Ho protectively. Taiwan smiled. The energy readings from this garage have been very interesting, especially to our alien friends who can't figure out what's causing them. We're not here to shut you down, General Moon added quickly, seeing Jin-Ho's worried face. We're here to help you develop it. Earth needs this technology. She handed Jin-Ho a tablet showing recent news. The Centaurian Empire was expanding, taking over smaller worlds. Their massive fleets were unstoppable because of their advanced shields. Your weapon could change the balance of power, General Moon said, but we need to move your lab to a secure facility. Now. Jin-Ho looked at his small garage lab, built from spare parts and dreams. Then he looked at Dae-Sung and Sunmei. They come too, he said firmly. I need them. General Moon nodded. Of course. We'll have you set up in the new lab by tonight. As they packed up the equipment, Jin-Ho felt both excited and scared. His invention was about to become more than just a science project. It was going to become Earth's greatest defense. Ready? Dae-Sung asked, carrying a box of tools. Jin-Ho took one last look at his garage. Ready, he said. Let's show the galaxy what Earth's kids can really do. The new laboratory was nothing like Jin-Ho's garage. Located deep underground in a military base near Seoul, it was filled with the best equipment Earth could provide. But today, no one was looking at the equipment. All eyes were on a large screen showing an emergency broadcast from space. Another world has fallen to the Centaurian Empire, Ambassador Taiwan announced to the room. The screen showed pictures of large, dark ships with purple energy shields surrounding them. They've taken 3 planets in the last month. Jin-Ho looked at his friend Dae-Sung, who was checking data on their latest test. They had been working non-stop for 2 weeks, making their weapons stronger and more accurate. How close are they to Earth? Professor Sunmei asked quietly. Too close, General Moon answered, pointing to a star map. Their fleet will reach our outer colonies in less than 2 months. Just then, the screen flickered, and a new face appeared. It was Admiral Vex of the Centaurian Empire, tall, with silver skin and cold eyes that seemed to glow. People of Earth, the alien commander said, his voice deep and threatening. Your planet has something we want. Our sensors have detected unusual energy readings from your world. Readings that should not be possible for such a primitive species. Jin-Ho felt his stomach tighten. They knew about his invention. Surrender this technology to the Empire, Admiral Vex continued, or we will take it by force. You have 1 Earth week to decide. The screen went dark. The room was silent for a moment, then burst into worried conversation. We're not ready, Dae-Sung said to Jin-Ho. The weapon works, but we've only built 3 prototypes. Then we'll build more, Jin-Ho replied, walking to his workbench. We'll work day and night if we have to. General Moon approached them. How many weapons can you make in a week? Jin-Ho did some quick calculations in his head. Maybe 20. But we need more power cores. You'll have them, she promised. Whatever you need. Professor Sunmi joined them, carrying a tablet with new test results. Jin-Ho, look at this, she said. Remember how the aliens laughed at your primitive ideas? Well, that might be our advantage. They can't copy the weapon because they think about quantum physics in the wrong way. Jin-Ho smiled for the first time since the threat. They're too advanced to see the simple solution, he said, like trying to read a book by holding it too close to your eyes. Ambassador Taiwan, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke up. We need to show them we're not afraid. Jin-Ho, can you build something impressive? Something we can demonstrate. I have an idea, Jin-Ho said, grabbing a pen and paper. He started drawing quickly while everyone watched. We can build a bigger version, powerful enough to disable a warship without destroying it. Show them we have the power but choose not to kill. Dae-Sung looked at the drawing and grinned. That's clever. Scare them without starting a war. Get started, General Moon ordered. I'll send in more engineers to help. As people rushed around preparing for the work ahead, Jin-Ho looked at the star map showing the approaching Centaurian fleet. The aliens thought Earth would be an easy target. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The underground lab had turned into a busy factory. Engineers worked around the clock, building more weapons based on Jin-Ho's design. The sound of tools and machines filled the air as everyone raced against time. 4 days left, Dae-sung said, checking another weapon off their list. We've built 15 so far. Jin-Ho nodded, not looking up from his work. He was building something special, a larger version of his weapon that could disable an entire warship. His hands were tired, but he couldn't stop. Suddenly, the lab's main door opened. Hae-Yun Lee, the researcher who had believed in Jin-Ho at the Science Summit, walked in with General Moon. Hae-Yun has left the Galactic Science Council to help us, the general explained. She knows how the Centaurian ships work. Their shields have a weakness, Hae-Yun said, spreading out some technical drawings. They pulse every 3 seconds. It's too fast to see, but your weapon might be able to use that. Jin-Ho studied the drawings. We can time our energy beam to hit between pulses, he said excitedly. Make it even stronger. Professor Sun-Mi joined them, carrying a cup of coffee for Jin-Ho. The Alien Council is getting suspicious, she said. They've been asking questions about why Earth is so quiet. Let them wonder, General Moon replied. The less they know, the better. Just then, Dae-sung called out from his testing station. Jin-Ho, come look at this. Everyone rushed over. Dae-sung was pointing at some strange readings on his screen. When aliens try to use the weapon, it doesn't work, he said. It only responds to human operators. That's impossible, Hae-Yun said, but she sounded impressed. How? Jin-Ho smiled. Remember how they said humans think about quantum physics in a primitive way? The weapon is tuned to our brainwaves. Our primitive thinking is the key to making it work. Perfect, General Moon exclaimed. They can't steal our technology even if they capture it. The lab's mood lifted after that discovery. They worked faster, more confidently. Jin-Ho's larger weapon was almost ready, and the smaller ones were being installed on Earth's defense stations. 2 more days, Sun-Mi said, watching Jin-Ho make final adjustments to the big weapon. Will we be ready? We have to be, Jin-Ho replied. He looked around the lab at all the people working together. Engineers, scientists, soldiers. Some had been awake for days, fueled by coffee and determination. Hae-Yun approached Jin-Ho with a serious look. The Centaurian Empire has never been stopped, she said quietly. But they've also never faced anything like this. You've created something that changes everything. I just wanted to prove them wrong about Earth, Jin-Ho admitted. I never thought it would lead to this. Sometimes the best inventions come from the simplest wishes, Hae-Yun said with a smile. They laughed at you. Now they'll learn to respect Earth. An alarm sounded, making everyone jump. General Moon rushed to the command screen. Her face turned pale as she read the message. The Centaurian fleet, she announced. They're moving faster than we expected. They'll be here tomorrow. Jin-Ho looked at his big weapon, still needing final tests. Then he looked at his tired friends and colleagues. Then we'll be ready tomorrow, he said firmly. Earth isn't going to surrender. Not now. Not ever. The Centaurian fleet appeared in Earth's space exactly as the sun rose over Seoul. 50 massive warships, their purple shields glowing against the dark sky. People around the world watched on their screens as the alien ships moved closer to Earth. In the underground command center, Jin-Ho and his team stood ready. The large weapon they had built was now mounted on a space station, aimed at the Centaurian fleet. Smaller weapons were hidden on satellites all around Earth. They're broadcasting, General Moon announced. The main screen lit up with Admiral Vex's face. Your time is up, the alien commander said. Surrender your technology, or we will take it by force. Ambassador Taiwan stepped forward to reply. We invite you to send 1 ship forward to discuss terms, he said calmly. Admiral Vex laughed. You are in no position to make demands, primitive ones. Please, Ta-1 insisted. One ship, unless you're afraid. The alien commander's eyes flashed with anger. Very well. But any tricks, and we will destroy your major cities. One huge Centaurian ship broke away from the fleet, moving closer to Earth. Jin-Ho looked at Dae-sung, who was manning the weapon controls. Remember the timing, Jin-Ho said. Wait for the shield pulse. The alien ship stopped just where they wanted it. Jin-Ho watched the shield readings on his screen, counting silently. Now, he shouted. Dae-sung pressed the firing button. A beam of pure energy shot from the space station, perfectly timed between the shield pulses. It struck the Centaurian ship, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then all the lights on the massive ship went dark. Its shields flickered and died. The ship floated helplessly in space, completely disabled but not destroyed. The command center erupted in cheers. On the main screen, Admiral Vex's face showed shock and anger. Impossible, he shouted. How did you? That was one weapon, General Moon said, stepping into view. We have hundreds more. Your shields cannot stop them. Your ships cannot detect them. And only humans can use them. To prove her point, she signaled to the defense stations. Dozens of smaller energy beams shot out from Earth's satellites, dancing around the Centaurian fleet without hitting them. A clear demonstration of power and precision. You laughed at our science, Jin-Ho said, joining General Moon on screen. Called us primitive, but we just showed you something your advanced technology can't copy or stop. Admiral Vex's face had lost its arrogant look. For the first time, there was fear in his glowing eyes. What are your terms? He asked quietly. Leave Earth's space immediately, General Moon commanded. And spread the word. Earth is not weak. We are not primitive. We are not to be threatened. The Centaurian fleet began to turn around. The disabled ship's emergency systems had kicked in, giving it enough power to limp away. As the alien ships disappeared into deep space, the command center filled with celebration. Jin-Ho felt Dae-sung grab him in a happy hug. Professor Sun-Mei and Hei-Yun were smiling proudly. You did it, Ambassador Ta-1 said to Jin-Ho. You proved Earth's worth to the galaxy. We all did it, Jin-Ho replied, looking at his friends and teammates. And this is just the beginning. Now they know. Never underestimate Earth's kids. News of Earth's victory spread through the galaxy faster than light speed. Within days, the underground lab was flooded with messages from different alien species. Some were scared. Others were curious. All of them wanted to know more about Earth's new weapon. Another message from the Science Council, Dae-sung said, checking the communication screen. They want to send representatives to study our technology. Jin-Ho was working on improving his weapon designs when Hei-Yun rushed into the lab. We have a problem, she said. Dr. Nexus from the Centaurian Empire has disappeared with important files about our defense systems. General Moon immediately called an emergency meeting. The team gathered around the main table, looking at pictures of the silver-skinned alien scientist. Dr. Nexus is their best weapons maker, Hei-Yun explained. If anyone can figure out how to copy our technology, it's him. Let them try, Jin-Ho said confidently. The weapons only work for humans, remember. But Professor Sun-Mei looked worried. They might find a way around that. We need better security. Just then, the lab's alarms went off. On the security screens, they saw 3 shapes moving through the dark halls. They were using some kind of cloaking technology, but the lab's sensors could detect their heat signatures. Intruders, General Moon shouted. Seal all doors. The shapes were getting closer to the main lab. Jin-Ho quickly grabbed one of the smaller weapons from the testing area. Dae-sung took another, and they aimed at the lab entrance. The door slid open. 3 tall figures in black suits appeared, led by Dr. Nexus himself. His silver skin gleamed in the lab lights. Don't move, General Moon commanded, as soldiers surrounded the intruders. Dr. Nexus smiled. "We just wanted to borrow your wonderful invention," he said smoothly. "The Centaurian Empire will pay you well." "The weapons aren't for sale," Jinho said, "and they won't work for you anyway." The alien scientist pulled out a strange device. "Oh, but we found a way to change that. This machine can copy human brainwave patterns once we apply them to our soldiers." He never finished his sentence. Jinho had secretly activated one of his new security measures. A soft blue light filled the room, and suddenly all the aliens froze in place. "What did you do?" Hei-Yun asked, amazed. "Remember how they said humans think differently?" Jinho explained. "I created a field that only affects minds that process quantum physics the advanced way. They're stuck thinking in circles." The soldiers quickly arrested Dr. Nexus and his team. As they were led away, the alien scientist looked at Jinho with newfound respect and fear. "We were wrong about humans," he admitted. "Your primitive thinking, it sees things we can't, does things we can't understand." After the excitement was over, Ambassador Taiwan arrived with important news. "The High Council has called an emergency meeting," he announced. "They want to talk about making Earth a major power in the Galactic Alliance." Jinho smiled at Daesung. "Maybe now they'll stop calling us primitive." "They'd better," Daesung laughed, "or we'll show them more of our primitive inventions." The lab team celebrated their victory, but Jinho was already thinking ahead. He had new ideas, better ones. Earth wasn't just going to be part of the galaxy's future. It was going to lead it. 1 month after stopping the Centaurian invasion, Jinho stood in a grand meeting hall on the High Council's space station. The room was filled with representatives from 20 different alien species. None of them were laughing now. "Earth has proven itself," the council leader announced. "We propose a new alliance, with Earth as a founding member." Ambassador Taiwan smiled proudly. Next to him, Hei-Yun was taking notes on her tablet. The meeting was historic. Earth was about to become one of the most important worlds in the galaxy. "But what about the weapons?" a blue-skinned alien asked nervously. "How do we know Earth won't use them against us?" Jinho stepped forward. He had grown more confident in the past month, no longer the shy boy who once stood before them. "I have a better idea," he said. "We've found peaceful uses for our quantum technology, ways to help everyone, not just defend ourselves." He nodded to Daesung, who activated a hologram in the center of the room. It showed a new device they had built, one that could heal damaged spaceships and repair broken quantum drives. "Our primitive understanding of quantum physics doesn't just make weapons," Jinho explained. "It can fix things other technology can't touch. We want to share this with our allies." The aliens murmured with interest. Professor Sunmi joined Jinho, carrying more designs. "We're also developing better ways to travel through space," she said. "Safer ways to use quantum fields for exploration, not destruction." One by one, other aliens stood up to support Earth. Even some former enemies joined in. The Centaurian Empire, still recovering from their defeat, sent a message supporting the alliance. "Earth has taught us all a lesson," their new leader's message said. "True advancement comes from seeing things differently, not just having the most advanced technology." After the meeting, Jinho and his friends gathered in the station's observation room. Through the huge windows, they could see Earth glowing like a blue jewel in space. "Hard to believe it all started with them laughing at your ideas," Daesung said, patting Jinho's shoulder. "Now they're asking Earth for help with their own research," Hei-Yun added. 5 alien science teams want to work with us." Ambassador Taiwan brought them more good news. "The High Council approved all our proposals," he said. "Earth will lead the new scientific coalition. They want us to teach our way of thinking to other worlds." "Not bad for a bunch of primitives," Professor Sunmi laughed. Jinho watched more ships arrive at the station, vessels from different worlds, coming to learn from Earth. Each one carried scientists eager to understand humanity's unique view of the universe. "What's next?" General Moon asked, joining them at the window. Jin-Ho pulled out his notebook, filled with new drawings and ideas. "I think it's time we showed them what else Earth's kids can do," he said. "This is just the beginning." The others gathered around to look at his latest ideas. Their faces lit up with excitement as he explained each one. Earth wasn't just joining the galactic community. It was changing it, making it better. And somewhere in Seoul, in a small garage now famous across the galaxy, a sign hung on the door, where the impossible became possible, thanks to Earth's kids. 1 year later, Jin-Ho stood once again in the Great Hall of the Galactic Science Summit. But this time, everything was different. Instead of being the only human in the room, he was surrounded by students from Earth and dozens of alien worlds. "Welcome to the first United Galactic Science Academy," he announced to the excited crowd. "Here, we won't laugh at new ideas. We'll explore them together." The academy was Jin-Ho's dream come true. Built in Seoul with help from all major galactic powers, it was a place where different ways of thinking were celebrated, not mocked. Dae-sung, now head of practical training, led a group of young aliens through their first quantum physics experiment. "Remember," he told them, "sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." In another room, Professor Sun-mi and Hae-yun taught a class about combining Earth's primitive insights with advanced alien science. Their students included some of the same aliens who had once laughed at Jin-Ho's theories. "Look who's here," Dae-sung said, pointing to the entrance. Admiral Vex, the former Centaurian commander, walked in. He looked different now, humbler, more curious. He had quit the military to become a student himself. "I hope I'm not too late to learn," he said to Jin-Ho. "You're just in time," Jin-Ho replied with a smile. "We're about to demonstrate something new." They all gathered in the main laboratory. Jin-Ho's original garage lab had been carefully rebuilt inside the academy, kept exactly as it was. But next to it stood the most advanced equipment from across the galaxy. "This is where we combine both ways of thinking," Jin-Ho explained. He activated a device that created beautiful patterns of quantum energy in the air, Earth's creativity with alien precision. "Together, we can do amazing things." Ambassador Taiwan watched from the back of the room, smiling proudly. Earth was now the heart of galactic science and learning. Every day, new discoveries were made by humans and aliens working together. "Tell us again how it all started," a young alien student asked Jin-Ho. "It started with laughter," Jin-Ho said, "and ended with understanding. Sometimes being called primitive just means you see things in a fresh way." General Moon, who now led Earth's new science defense force, joined them. "The galaxy is safer now," she said, "not because of weapons, but because we learned to respect each other's ideas." As the day ended, Jin-Ho and his friends gathered in his old garage lab. They had kept it as a reminder of where everything began. "Did you ever imagine this would happen?" Dae-sung asked, sitting on the same workbench where they had made their first discovery. "Not in my wildest dreams," Jin-Ho admitted. "But it proves something important. Never underestimate anyone, especially kids with big ideas." Professor Sun-mi raised a cup of coffee and a toast. "To Earth's kids," she said, "who taught the galaxy a lesson in humility." "And to new beginnings," Hae-yun added. Jin-Ho looked at his friends, then at the students leaving the academy outside. Humans and aliens walking together, sharing ideas, building a better future. No more mockery, no more wars. Just curiosity and cooperation. "The best discoveries," he said, "come when we stop laughing at different ideas and start learning from them instead." And in the sky above Seoul, ships from across the galaxy flew peacefully past the academy, their crews no longer divided by who was primitive or advanced. They were all just explorers now, united in their quest to understand the universe's mysteries, together.